thank you for all attending tonight. I've had unique opportunities to serve this wonderful community since I moved here, and I look forward to serving as mayor. I wanted to participate tonight and address the public. I'm always available to meet with any resident or constituent. The format tonight is apparently not going to allow me to answer questions. You should know I'm always available. My wife's going to hate this. You can call my house, 738-6986, or you can email me, mjvolpe23@gmail.com. In the last 2 years, the team that I've served on delivered on campaign promises. We delivered fiscally responsible budgets under the tax cap. We've reached 2 agreements with 2 of the 3 municipal unions. We reduced parking fees and increased revenue by renting out spots that were available. We increased green space, and we have plans for more green space improvements in our community. We've approved the creation of a new village website, and significantly, we have reached agreement to sell the notorious Heights water system to United Water. These accomplishments have been reached in a bipartisan, collaborative manner. Each and every item we have worked on as a board has been supported by unanimous votes of our board, regardless of party affiliation. Under my leadership, we're going to continue on a fiscally responsible path. We'll stay under the tax cap, and we'll seek rebates for the residents with a government efficiency plan. We'll settle contracts with all municipal unions. We will finish the website and make it better for our residents and make it user-friendly. I want to make this very clear. I'm a fan of shared services. I am not proposing or advocating a merger of the village governments. I do want to save taxpayers money. You can do that with shared services, and with or without our sister village, we will pursue those means. We're going to organize and have a robust discussion on downtown development, and I'm always available. Thank you for coming tonight, and I look forward to having you call my home, and I'll answer any question you have.
Thank you, Mr. Volpe. You can take a seat in the audience, and if you have a question for any of the candidates, you may give me one of these cards.
Well, I was tendered a question by my wife, but it questions my sanity. So.
We do have a timekeeper. We have the limits on answers to questions and opening statements, and in the League of Women Voters tradition. And now I turn this meeting over to our moderator.
Greetings. My name's Harry McLaughlin. I live in Katona, so I don't vote in this district, so I'm impartial as to what goes on tonight. The procedure will be that the candidates will make opening statements of 2 minutes each. 90 seconds, I'm sorry. I will make more mistakes than that, probably as the evening progresses. But at any rate, 90 seconds for each opening statement, and they are going to speak in order. They have drawn lots to determine that order. When they make their closing statements at the end of the evening, it'll be 2 minutes, and it will be the reverse order of speaking. So the first person to speak after drawing the lot is Ms. Sisk. You have 90 seconds.
My name is Erica Sisk, and I'm running for village trustee because I'm concerned about our village. Public safety is at risk, and it does not appear that it's being addressed at this point. The most immediate cause of concern occurs at both Colonial and the middle and high schools during drop-off in the morning. Parents are dropping off their children at dangerous places and having them walk across 1 or 2 lanes of traffic where there is no crosswalk. I've seen this for myself, and the concerns have been echoed on the Moms of Pelham Facebook page. I think that representatives from the schools, the police, and the village need to meet and come up with a better plan regarding traffic patterns and enforcement of the rules. Our children's lives depend on better systems and parents following that system. The second area of concern, which I hear about often, and you all know, is the terrible condition of our roads. Even before all of the snow and plowing, our roads were in bad shape. I've heard about flat tires due to the potholes, and I'm sure that more damage is being done to cars. So when the weather finally does break and some children decide to ride their bikes to school, is it a luxury to want them to ride on well-maintained roads? We need a comprehensive capital improvement plan, and we need to start getting grants to help fund the projects included. The current administration was able to boast that they kept taxes within the tax cap and did not increase our debt, largely because they did not address the key infrastructure issues. These problems are not going anywhere, and it seems prudent to me to develop a plan to fix them and act on that plan before someone gets seriously hurt.
Thank you, Ms. Sisk. The next speaker is Mr. McGoldrick, or rather, Ms. McGoldrick. Yeah, Mr. McGoldrick.
Close enough. Hi, I'm Paul McGoldrick. I've served in the past as chairman of the planning board here in the village, and also as a trustee for a little under 3 years. I know how this village government works. I know how hard it is to keep to a budget and still provide all the services that everyone expects. Believe me, I run my own business. I know how these choices can be very challenging. In the short term, there are several, in my view, fairly obvious things that we should do. We need to seek grants everywhere and anywhere that we can. In the past, the village has been very successful in obtaining grants for a variety of projects. I mean, the Wolf's Lane Park that Susan has worked so hard on is an example of that. We need to find additional parking, in my view. I know this has been very difficult in the past, but I don't want to give up on that. This is something which is vital to the community. It will help the renters. It will help the merchants. This might include land use and zoning. In the longer term, we must look to the future. The comprehensive plan should be updated to reflect current economic conditions, and we need to push to share services. As Trustee Volpe pointed out, I fully agree with that. It is my belief that this is inevitable, whether it is forced on us by the state or we're pulled there by economic forces. We need to get out in front of this, and I believe the time is ripe for this conversation to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGoldrick. Ms. Stern. Ms. Stern is correct. That's right. Ms. Stern is next.
Thank you. My husband Charlie and I chose to move our family to Pelham 5 years ago because we found in Pelham a community of strong schools with a convenient downtown corridor and a train station within walking distance. We found a safe and lovely community in which we could raise our family. I am running for village trustee because I hope to bring a practical perspective and voice to village governance. When I was considering running for trustee, I was thinking a great deal about what were the issues. What was a burning issue that would pull me into this race? Garbage pickup, traffic around the schools, crossing guards, downtown development, new playgrounds and parks, or whatever the latest hot topic is on MOTS. Then I realized it isn't one thing, but rather an amalgam of all these things. The very everyday things that make this village a great place to live, and the things that speak to its great potential. As a village trustee, I will advance the realization of our great potential by bringing to bear over 25 years of experience working in leadership positions and on policy-making boards. I'll bring diverse opinions to the table. I'll be fiscally responsible and mindful of the important fiduciary responsibility that's part of the position. As a village trustee, my priority will be to enhance the livability of the village so that it continues to be a great place to live, work, and play. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Stern. Mr. Cassidy.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Tim Cassidy, and I'm a candidate for trustee in the village of Pelham. I grew up in Pelham, as many of you know, attended Pelham High School. After that, I went to Cornell University, and where I met my wife. We have 3 kids who we've brought up in Pelham. My son is 22, my daughter is a sophomore at Cornell, and my other daughter is a freshman at Colgate. We moved back here, after living in the city for a while, as a lot of young families do, and started our life here. We've been involved in a lot of the local community charitable events, coaching. I was most recently the president of the Friends of Pelham Sports that was responsible for installing the turf field Glover. And I was also given the privilege of, I was elected trustee in 2000 for 4 years, from 2000 to 2004. I was also the fire department liaison from 2000 to 2004, 2001 to 2004. And in 2013, I was compelled to run for mayor. And the reason was I felt like the village was on the wrong track. I thought fiscally, what had happened over the past 3 years was unacceptable. We had lived through 2 successive increases of 8%, and the village board had then voted to override the cap for the 3rd year. So I just felt could not continue, and that's why I was forced to run for mayor. I am truly think we've done a good job in the 2 years of the last 2 years, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to do it for the next 2 years as trustee.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Ferreira.
Hi, my name is Saida Ferrara, and I would like to tell you why I'm running for village trustee. I truly believe that Pelham benefits from the energy that new active community members bring to our board of trustees. As a working mother of 2 preschool children, I represent the concerns and needs of young families in our village and would bring a different perspective to the board. While I am new to the political landscape, I am not new to community work in Pelham. I have been committed to revitalizing downtown from day one, helping Mayor Cassidy launch the Business Development Committee so that we can tap into the talent that we have available in our community. I am also the co-chair of the Junior League Committee to build Woodland Park on Wolf's Lane and have been working on this great project with Trustee Muti for the past year. I am committed to fiscal responsibility and keeping our budget under the state cap while maintaining a healthy fund balance and making smart investments in our village. If elected on March 18th, I will continue to work hard for the village, complete the projects that we have started together, and start new projects to enhance our community. I understand the challenge before me, and I am confident that I have joined the right team to continue moving our village in the right direction. So I thank you for your support.
Thank you, Ms. Ferreira. Ms. Muti.
Thank you. My name is Susan Muti. Good evening, and thank you for attending the debate. I appreciate the Pelham Weekly sponsoring this forum so that the community can attend and watch the rebroadcast. I have lived in Pelham for 21 years and been a trustee for 2 years. It has been a privilege to serve the community, and I'm hoping for one more term to continue my work. Over the last 2 years, I have worked with the Department of Public Works and seen firsthand their contribution in keeping our village functioning. I have partnered with them on park projects and enjoyed watching the progress of park enhancements. I negotiated their labor union contract under the tax cap and ahead of the deadline. As liaison for Green Space, I am pleased to report that every village-owned park has been improved, from the complete renovation of Trotta Park on Fifth Avenue to the landscaping and painting of the historic Pelham Clock Tower, the planting of Benedict Fountain, including the installation of lighting, multiple planting projects and new benches in Young Avenue Field, 11 new trees at the corner of Wolf's Lane Park at Pelhamdale and First, and a soon-to-be-installed children's playground, as well as a complete redesign of the park for Wolf's Lane. All done in a collaborative manner with help from neighbors, high school student volunteers, Pelham Preservation and Garden Society, the Junior League, Pelhamwood Neighborhood Association, the Town Board, and Senator Klein. These were all completed with grants and donations and not taxpayer money. I have worked on a number of communication projects, including spearheading a soon-to-be-implemented redesign of the village website. I created a village Facebook page and implemented a marketing plan for our new parking map. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sisk. We come now to the exciting part where you, the audience, have posed questions to these candidates. And I will read the first one, which is directed specifically to Ms. Sisk. She will have 2 minutes to answer this question. As the chairperson of...
Wait, you gotta say who's asking it, and they stand.
That's great. I forgot. Who asked this question? It was Mr. Pete Potocki. Would he stand, please, so we know who he is? Thank you, sir.
And read his address.
Pardon?
Read his address.
Read his address, 66 Boulevard. Is that right? Yes. Okay, great. Anything else?
Now,
Okay. I will now ask the question. As the chairperson of the Democratic Party of the Village of Pelham, would your ability to work in a bipartisan manner be compromised? Ms. Sisk.
Thank you. That's a great question, and I have no problem working in a bipartisan environment. I think in small towns like this, there really isn't any Republican, Democrat. Any of our views on national issues don't come into play in small town politics. And overall, I think we're all looking about the same things. We're looking at decreasing taxes or keeping taxes under the tax cap. We're looking at improving the village, improving our downtown, and it wouldn't be a problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question
Are we
is,
supposed to respond, or
only if you
okay,
want to.
okay.
you
I
can,
thought there was a response.
you can add, she didn't use her 2 minutes, you can add a few seconds if you wish.
So I wasn't sure of the rules. So if there's a question asked, can we respond also?
You can respond if it's something that
Okay, fine.
needs a response.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is directed to Erica Sisk, of all people. It is from Ciro Greco, and he is from 37 3rd Street. And the question is, with the fund balance approaching 15%, do you see this as a problem? And if so, what would you do about it? Ms. Sisk?
Well, I don't know all the particulars of the budget as people who've been on the board for the last 2 years have been. I do know the fund balance is kind of our savings account, and that's what we use for emergency funds. And I know that number goes up and down depending on what the needs are. I know right now the needs are great because we've had a terrible winter, and with the, I know our salt is depleted, and we've had lots of plowing, so I'm sure those expenses are high. As the budget comes time to be approved, that will be adjusted. So I don't have concerns over the fund balance. Again, I don't know all the details of it because I've not been on the board for the last 2 years. But as a finance major from Lehigh University, I don't think I'll have a problem catching and getting up to speed.
Okay,
A response?
yes, is,
I would say that, I would like to respond, and I'd say that that was the first question I was asked in a debate in 2000 by none other than Will Kavanaugh. But essentially, there almost is no right answer, but the state guideline is between 5 and 15. And we are approaching now, especially with the benefit of having sold the water system, but knock on wood, next year, we will now be over that 15%, which is a concern. Now, that is essentially is saying that we've taken too much money out of your pockets and that we should somehow either find projects that make sense or give that back and apply it to budgets to control our taxes.
And we have not run out of
thank you,
salt.
sir.
We are not out of salt yet.
Yeah, no rebuttals, please. Okay, next question is from Mary Hefner, is that correct? Yes. 232 Highbrook Avenue in Pelham. Thank you. It's to Susan Muti. The question is, you are the only female on the current board. Did that present any obstacles for you? Ms. Muti?
No, it did not present any obstacles at all. It is an all-male board with a male administrator, but I have to say that it's been a very welcoming experience for me. I also work with an all-male department, the Department of Public Works, and they've been kind to show me around and explain how everything works, and we've done a terrific job of partnering with each other. It's been great to be able to work with people with different styles, and I've learned a lot, and I really don't feel like that's a gender-specific situation. It's been nice to be exposed to different managerial styles and to find ways to collaborate, not only within the board, but beyond the board as well, with other elected officials at our level in Pelham as well as beyond. I feel like it's hard to believe it's been 2 years because it's gone by so quickly, but it's been a really positive experience for me. It's been challenging, but I feel like it's been a great experience.
Okay, does anyone want to pick up there's no minutes left really, but the opposing party would like to make nobody? Okay. Okay, next question is by Elizabeth, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, by Elizabeth M-I-W-E-R? Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R. Your writing is just as good as mine, yeah. Of Loring Avenue, correct? And the question is for Zara Ferrara. The question is, how do you feel your service in the Junior League will relate to your service as a trustee?
I definitely think it has prepared me for work at the board. Just like working on the board, it's hard work. Especially working with Woodland Park, I've learned that, again, just like serving on the board, you have to go out and get community feedback and see what the community needs are. Then you have to come up with a concept, you have to debate it, you have to come up with a budget, and you have to see if the project is feasible. And I think that having worked on Woodland Park for the past year has definitely prepared me for the job at hand.
Okay, short and sweet. Any response? Mr. Brendan Hefner, did you not ask something a moment ago? Or is it another person? Okay. Highbrook Avenue in Pelham. Yes. This is directed to Paul McGoldrick. As an advocate for merging the villages, how would you address Pelham Manor's side since they appear to not be in favor of a merger? Mr. McGoldrick.
It is apparent to me, whether everyone agrees or not, that this is something that we need to talk about. If the Manor doesn't want to do this, I can appreciate that. From where they're sitting, they think that there's no economic benefit for them to do this. I would argue to anyone who wants to think about this and say, look, we are really but one town. Does it benefit anyone if either of these two sister villages is worse than the other? That's my first question. The second question I would pose to the Manor is to say, why should we not talk about this? Why should there be a benefit accruing to you in the Manor? When let's just take an example of where does the high school and the middle school reside? They are within the confines of the village of Pelham. If that had been moved to the other side of Colonial Avenue, as an example, what would have happened to all that real estate? Where would all those taxes have been going all of these years? They wouldn't have been accruing to the village of the Manor. They would have been accruing to the village of Pelham. I'm not being petty about this. What I'm trying to say is that this is a discussion that we can have, that I don't expect that this will happen overnight, but I do firmly believe that whether we like it or not, we simply cannot stay with the paradigm that was created back in the early 1900s. We're now in the 21st century. I feel very strongly about this. And I'm happy to have this conversation with anybody from the village, of either village. But I hope that that conversation can proceed and that reasonable people can come to some agreement about this.
Okay, thank you. Is there a response?
Yeah, I would like to say that I agree with Paul, and I agree with Michael, what Mike said at the beginning. It's our responsibility as trustees, as wards of the taxes that are paid, to deliver the services most efficiently as possible. We have a responsibility to our taxpayers to do that. So if that is because we can get a better deal buying more salt with Pelham Manor, or if we can, you know, I've actually raised the question, can we talk about sharing services, in this case, the fire department, directly with Mayor Sellier at the time. We've had these dinners for the last 2 years. Every 3 months, Pete DiPaolo gives us a call. We get together with Lisa Kiernan. I think it's been productive, but as Paul's pointed out, it's been very difficult to get any traction on that side. And I think it's part of it. It is the system. It's very difficult to get them to understand or get them to even think about, you know, ways that we might benefit working together. And I think it is unfortunate. So, but I do agree that that's very important.
Okay, thank you, sir. A question from Mr. Ed Doty. Thank you. Oak Avenue in Pelham, is that right? Okay, and this is directed at Erica Sisk. What would you do as a board member to improve the roads and sidewalks? They seem dangerous for cars, I can't read the last part of it. Would you please? For cars and kids on bicycles.
I would agree the roads are in bad shape, as would everyone in this room, I think. What we really need to do is to look for more grants to help improve our infrastructure. And we need to make some hard decisions within our budget to shift funds if necessary to start addressing those infrastructure issues, whether they need repaving, resurfacing, just filling potholes doesn't seem to be enough. You know, so far, or presently, we've only funded the minimal amount of repairs, and we need to go a little bit farther with that. Do you guys want to add to that?
Okay, any response?
I'd like to respond to that.
Okay.
We definitely have issues with our roads, especially after a challenging winter, but our DPW does an incredible job of patching potholes, and they are out. I call the potholes in. By the time I drive by again, that pothole is filled. They do a wonderful job of sort of doing the day-to-day maintenance. In terms of trying to secure funds for more comprehensive paving, we do use the CHIPS money that's allocated to us, and we did consolidate that money and pave Fifth Avenue, which had a huge impact on the downtown because we were trying to lift our downtown as well as addressing all of the roads. It's unfortunate that the roads are in such terrible shape, but right now the decision is either to continue to look for grants, which there have not been grants relative to street paving, or we would be presenting those to you. But it's also a decision to decide whether or not you want to go very far into debt in order to repair the streets. And so what we've been taking the approach of is filling potholes and making them safe. We also did a very extensive sidewalk repair program, especially around highly trafficked areas around the train station and around the schools. And we've been also following up with residents who it's their responsibility to do what's in front of their house. And so I feel like we've done a great job of being stewards for the safety in that respect.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Chris Rhyme of 14 Benedict Place, is he here? There he is. Okay. This question is for Deborah Stern. You have no experience working on the board or any lesser village boards. What will you bring to this board? And the question is for Deborah Stern.
Okay, that's me. Thought I was going to get off scot-free. I was like, time is ticking. Nobody's asked me a question yet. It's 8:30. Thank you, Chris, for that question. What I bring is, I've had 25 years of working in and around Westchester County on a variety of different policymaking boards. I grew up in New Rochelle. I lived in the city for 10 years, maybe 10 years. I came back, moved to Mount Vernon, and now I live in Pelham. So within that time span, I've had the opportunity to be involved on boards that set policy, that have had fiduciary responsibility, that were governmental in certain ways. And I think that that's what I bring to this board, is that experience. I mean, specifically, I'm appointed to the African American Advisory Board for the county by the county executive. I've been a district leader for many years in all over Westchester. I've been, I mean, I guess most profoundly, I started a school in Mount Vernon that I run. And so in doing that, I had to be very intricately involved with understanding the inner workings of city government and state government. And if you've ever done anything with state education department in Albany, you realize that is very difficult. And in that role as director of Amani Public Charter School, I wrote the grant for the school. I had to negotiate Albany to do that. I brought $2 million worth of grant money into the school, and I run it every day. And I think that the biggest thing is being on this board. First of all, we need to get some more women for Susan Moody, so hopefully, you know, that you guys will support us in that respect. But you had to be and know how to be collegial and work collegially together. And I've been doing that from when I was an undergraduate at Cornell. I think, Tim, you and I were there around the same time. Yeah. I was like, did we party together, or do I know you? I should check. Anyway, but I've been doing stuff since then. And so I think that's what I bring. You know, I was thinking about this a lot, and I don't know if this is a good analogy, but, you know, I often say to people, when they come to me and ask if they want to do things, I say, well, that's not necessarily an entry-level position. I understand that, but I think I bring a lot to this board.
Thank you.
and
You
I
can finish your
contribute.
sentence, but that's about it.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm being handed a question from Renee Gallagher of 90 Boulevard, and it is directed to Tim Cassidy. While in office, you were very involved in the extended applications process. With what issues and difficulties did that process present?
I think that was clearly one of the most difficult process, or most difficult decision that the board has reached in a long time. I think we were all pained by the process. I'd say if you ask the 7 trustees who are on that board, not one of us would support the nodes in Pelham. But we also have a responsibility to act in a responsible way. We were advised by the building inspector, our village administrator, that we should proceed a certain route. And that was, not necessarily to follow Chapter 87 to a T, because it was an outdated village telecommunications law. Actually, it was called the cell tower law back when I was actually a trustee when it was enacted. It was a very difficult process, and we were sued. Judge Zambelli said, you have to go through our now updated Chapter 87, and we did. The RF engineer who testified in that case said he has testified in hundreds of cases. He said it was the most diligent examination of any application he's ever seen. So I think we went through the process. I think we initially went through it in the spirit. We asked the right questions. We tried to have it moved. We did as much as we could. But at some point, we're responsible for acting responsibly. And I think given what I had heard, I called around. Mayor Steves from Scarsdale was $200,000 into a lawsuit that they ultimately lost, which is a 2% tax increase in our village. I called Seth Feiner, who's supervisor of Greenberg. They were $350,000 into a lawsuit, and he said verbatim, these nodes will not be moved 1 foot from where they initially proposed. So with that as knowledge, it was very difficult for us to make a decision any other than the one we did. But it was a torturous process for our entire village and ended up pitting neighbor versus neighbor, which is not what it's about.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Is there a response?
I was involved with the Extenet when I was on the board. In fact, I voted the first round with everybody. And my big regret for that, and I bet you it's shared by everybody, is just that we unfortunately trusted the Extenet people to do what they said they were going to do. And I view that as a failure on my part for not having taken the responsibility to say, I'm not going to trust you. These residents have a right to know. They have a right to be able to come in and talk about this and argue about it. And I have learned from that tremendously. It was, more than anything else, communication that was lacking from where I'm sitting on that at the time I was on the board. And hereafter going forward, I'm never trusting anybody again when it comes to anything like this, believe me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Carpenter of 50 Central Avenue. Thank you. Has posed a question to Susan and Paul. Susan first, perhaps. Ms. Muti, where do you see potential improvements in our downtown over the next decade, and what are the immediate steps that we can take over the next 2 years?
That's a great question, and it's a question on a lot of people's minds. In fact, the Junior League this past October declared their roundtable to be specific to issues relating to downtown. On the board, we have a limit to what we can do. We certainly can't attract the kinds of merchants that some people think that we should, even though we've written letters to companies like Starbucks and asked them to come. But what we've done to date is we've done park improvement, because we feel that a hospitable downtown, a beautiful downtown, is going to attract a higher level merchant and more shopping traffic. We've redesigned Wolf's Lane Park to meet the needs of the downtown, so that there are places for people to go and to sit and to enjoy and to experience, and so that the downtown acts, the park rather acts as an economic driver for the downtown. We've also been working with Pelham Preservation and Garden Society on historical designation for the downtown, which would not be restrictive, but would enable us to write for even more grants, in addition to being able to market to prospective merchants and even to residents that we have a historic downtown that we're proud of. We certainly have been taking sidewalk repair, as I mentioned before, seriously, and the paving of Fifth Avenue to make that a more welcoming landscape as well. We've also convened a new business development committee where we're trying to bring...
The time is up, I'm sorry. Mr. McGoldrick.
We all want a terrific looking downtown. What are the impediments to this? As I see it, the major one is parking. And until we can do something about parking, we're still going to be stuck where we are. The merchants just don't seem to want to do it. As I, as I originally thought to myself, you know, when the village was sort of built back in the 1920s, obviously, you know, the use of the automobile was not a major concern for the merchants, but it is today. And we need to find ways of doing this. I'm not, I'll probably talk about this later as well, but I am not willing to accept that we can't find some additional parking. It might mean making some fairly dramatic things. I mean, maybe was the expression in business, sometimes you have to spend money to make money. I'm not so sure that we can't find ways of doing this. I mean, it just is a bizarre suggestion. What about if we could put parking on top of Chichico's? Maybe we could work something out with him. This may never come to pass, but the bottom line is, let's start thinking about, let's not prejudge anything and say, where can we possibly find the place to put parking? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we rebut that or no? Or
You
is
me?
there- No, oh, actually, I had a thought, but that's okay.
No, I think we've had all the responses
That's
we're
true.
allowed.
Okay.
Yep, okay,
In your closing statement.
I'll add it.
yeah. Okay, Mr. Christian Pravat of 92 Young Avenue is addressing a question to Tim Cassidy. I hope I can read this,
Who is this?
Mr. Pravat.
Stand, please.
He did.
Oh, sorry. Well, I had to specify someone to start this.
All right, the question is to Mr. Cassidy, there are a lot of benefits to leave the leaves on site. Leaf pickup and disposal costs with the village will be practicing love them and leave them on village property. In other words, leave your leaves or not. Is that the size of it? I think it is.
Yes, are you in favor of this?
Yeah, Mr. Cassidy.
Absolutely, but I think it's up to the property owners to make that choice. I've had several discussions with members of EcoPel and the EcoPel board regarding this. I mean, I think, you know, they have some great ideas. The question is, should they be implemented or should they be an option that homeowners can choose? I think that for some people, that's going to be a great alternative, and they should be given that option, and we should encourage that. I don't necessarily know if that's the answer for everyone, though, so I don't think we can force that, as New Rochelle did. So I think that is an option. I think there are ways of encouraging it through our website and through other ways, because I do truly believe that a lot of the ideas you brought us are very, very smart, and we should encourage, but I don't know if you can enforce that. I don't know if Susan.
I'd like to pick up from a municipal perspective. There is a device that can be attached to a lawnmower that finally chops the leaves. When EcoPel brought this to us, we were already in the midst of a functioning budget, but it's something that we're going to be looking at in the next budget cycle. And there's a company in the New Rochelle that actually makes this attachment. And so our head of DPW has been in contact with them. And so we are trying to explore all the possible uses for using that wonderful nutrition from the leaves into the parks, reducing our costs.
Now,
Okay.
is there a response on this side?
I would only say that
How about Deborah?
I don't have anything on leaves. I'm going to talk about foot traffic.
Well, then Paul, I'm
yeah, there you
sorry,
go.
you haven't
Erica, do you?
I mean, I think, to be serious, I think that giving people the choice is important, and I think that, one of the great things about Pelham is that there's a lot of organizations that can contribute to sort of helping us to understand issues. So I'm not an expert in this area, but I would reach out to EcoPel. That's one thing I value about the community, is that there's so many involved organizations. So that's what I would say about leaves. I like to jump in them.
Thank you. Next question reads from Jack France of 214 6th Avenue. Thank you. This is directed to Zara Ferrara. Currently, our town uses rock salt as an ice deterrent, but rock salt has been shown to eat away at roads, cars, and to cause dangerous runoff. Would you be willing to support a more eco-friendly ice deterrent? Ms. Ferrara.
That is a really good question, and it's funny. I was having my husband is Swedish, and I was talking recently to my mother-in-law about this same issue. In Sweden, they don't use rock salt; they use sand. So it is definitely something that we should consider as an option. I can defer to our DPW expert, Susan, to expand on it. I'm not sure if those conversations have been had.
I know that we always consider safety first, and in the matter of having
Is she
salt
yielding
act
time?
as a
Oh,
deterrent
I can get
and
used to that.
to thaw the ice is important. I'm not familiar with alternative products, but I know that the standard is rock salt, unfortunately.
So until then, I mean, until we do more research on the issue, but I think we should definitely explore it.
So just,
All right, thank you.
That was a response.
So first of all, I just want to say, thank you for that question, Jack, and particularly as a young person coming out and having interest, I appreciate that. I do think we should look at alternatives because when we get back to the potholes, there was a couple of potholes that almost ate my car today, like literally almost ate my car. And even in our house, we have a wood porch, and so my husband's always does not want to put the salt down, but I'm always afraid of falling. So we look at the kitty litters, the other stuff. And I think that we should look at that as well in the city in the village, because we know that the corrosive salt leads to the potholes. The potholes are terrible, the roads are terrible. I think to think of the alternatives as a good thing, and I definitely would support that.
Thank you. Mr. Jack Marty of 275 Highbrook? Joe Marty. Sorry. Okay, thank you for standing. Question for Paul McGoldrick. Why are you coming back to the board?
God, I wish I knew.
Doesn't seem fair.
No, I'm kidding. I really enjoyed my time on the board, working with everybody. I really did. I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for everybody that has served on the board. I mean, the fact that you're willing to give of your time and your talents to the extent that it's required. And I'm going to say for the record right now, because I don't think I'll use all of my time here, Mike, thank you very, very much, because I sure as heck would not want to be the mayor. It is a very, very difficult task, as Tim will testify to, and anybody who wants to do this really should be applauded. It means a lot for the village. But the reason that I want to do it is I think that I've had an opportunity to step away from it, to look at it more objectively. And when I left the board, I left because there were just economic realities I had to face. I had 2 kids in college concurrently. I didn't tell you how much that cost. And I had to devote all of my time and effort and energy to make my business as profitable as it could. It was a grim reality, and I felt I couldn't do the right kind of work on the board and devote the time and the energy and do what needed to be done, knowing that that was the case. Having now sort of stabilized the boat a little bit, I feel I can once again go back, and there's also the fact that I feel I have a knowledge of how these things work, and I can bring something because of that. I'm not intimidated by it. I'm not wowed by it. I don't view this as a feather in my cap. Believe me, there is no benefit that accrues to one being a trustee. I can guarantee you that I get parking tickets just like everybody else. But it is public service, and I feel very strongly that if you can, you should serve the public.
Thank you, Mr. McGoldrick. Any response? Shouldn't be. Ms. Liz Parabin of 263 Ankin Avenue. Did I pronounce that properly?
No, Ancon.
Okay. You were up, and I guess I missed you. And the question is for Susan Muti. As liaison for communications for the past year, what have you accomplished?
As the communications liaison, I've actually been quite busy. I created a Facebook page for the village, and we've been able to share pictures of the projects that we've worked on, as well as to alert folks to reminders about recycling and bulk day and various other things that go on in the village. We also took the shade tree documents that were created in the course of committee meetings, and we put them on the town website, which they graciously hosted, so that people understand what appropriate street trees are, shade trees trees for their yards and how to plant them. Also, recipients of street trees got documentation for the very first time, so that they understood what the watering requirements were and the care and upkeep of their trees. We also put together a parking map that Mike Volpe mentioned earlier in an effort to market it, and so we actually had a beautiful rendering done of the map, and then we had acrylic displays put at the train station and all of the real estate offices, which I think definitely contributed to the number of spaces. I did a couple of WVOX radio interviews to sort of let people know what was going on, especially specific to the renovation of Trotta Park. And I've also championed the redesign of the website. The website is really not serving our community well, and it's very difficult to find documents, and so we went through a very lengthy process to find a proper vendor. And so I feel like we have really, in the past year, because I've only been the communications liaison for a year, really tried to bring the village forward. Also, all the collaborative work we've done with other organizations, whether it's the school board, town board, and all the different organizations in town, like Pelham Preservation, the neighborhood associations, Pellville Association we work with on the hanging baskets. And so I feel we've also gone to, like I said, the Junior League Roundtable. We presented the Wolf's Lane Park redesign there. We've presented at the PACT Town Hall meeting. So we've been really engaged in a lot of outreach in different forms.
Thank you.
Is there any response?
Any response? No response. Okay. Mr. Mark Mortimer. Mr. Mark Mortimer, I beg your pardon, 254 Cliff Avenue, he stood up, directed the question to Tim Cassidy. Where do we stand on the flooding issue?
Good question, Mark. The flooding issue is, again, another difficult, decade-old problem that we've been faced with. And I think our previous administration at Hotchkiss did a great job in getting grant money for this, for the flooding. But when we went to go bid it out, when I was first elected in March of 2013, I had our village administrator rebid the same project. And a project that was estimated at 620, the consultant came back and said it was going to be 680,000. When we went out for bid, it was 1.1. So almost double the cost. So we said it was potentially the wrong season, let's try it again. Came back and it was 1.25, so more than double. So we're faced with a project that, it's $3 million as of now. We have grant money of $1 million. If that cost is actually double, it's $6 million. That means the village would be on the hook for $5 million right now. It's something that we can't pursue. So I think something along the lines of what Susan did with our grant from Senator Klein, where we had a $5.5 million park project that we scaled down and repurposed the grant money. I think that's something that we're going to have to pursue in flooding. And it is a decades-old problem. We have, one of our trustees, Joe Sinertia, lives it daily. Mike Schreiman, our head of DPW, lives it daily. So these guys are in the zone that gets flooded. So they are concerned about it. They do everything we possibly can in the meantime until we come up with a long-term, fiscally responsible plan that we can adopt. That's our goal.
Okay, thank you.
Any
Is there a-
response on flooding?
Response from the other side?
Yeah, I think Tim hit the nail on the head with restructuring the grant and going back. There's $1 million sitting there that we can't let go to waste. So I think if we go back to FEMA and try to restructure the grant and work out something else to help with the flooding and the remediation in that area. The previous administration started that with an agreement with the city of New Rochelle and lowering Glenwood Lake before a big storm was coming, and that seems to have helped a little bit, but there's still more work to be done.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis of 65 Chiffon, is that correct?
Clifford.
Clifford, I'm sorry. This is directed to Ms. Mooti. Why has there not been a public hearing on the Wolf's Lane Park? Does- There's more to this. Doesn't the public get a chance to review this plan? Ms. Mooti.
Yes, the public has seen the plan in many formats. The public has seen the plan by way of a board meeting presentation. In fact, the Pelham Weekly covered it in a full-page spread with a color map and a very detailed article that was a result of the meeting that we had for the public, which was advertised in advance. We also did community outreach in that we went to the Pelham Preservation Board, which is typically gets the projects in a reactive manner. We went out to them in the beginning so that we could sort of show them what we were thinking about and engage them in the process. We also went to the PACT Town Hall meeting. I was asked to speak about the redesign. And we also participated in the Community Roundtable, which, as you know, is a forum for all the leaders of all the volunteer organizations, which is always widely attended, and I presented that there as well. We now are embarking on a secret process, which will start shortly, which will also be an opportunity for people to comment on it, and so we have the PowerPoint that I presented on the website, we have it on our Facebook page, and we also are going to be having the architect, the landscape architect come in, Sean Jansky, a local gentleman who actually understands the nuances, and I think, which is why he came up with such a fabulous park, was that he has municipal experience and he grew up in Pelham. So I feel like the park has really gotten a nice public vetting, but it's not over. And so as a result of going through the secret process, we'll be able to really talk about environmental impacts and be able to even pursue the discussion further. This grant has been sitting around for 5 years, and so we are anxious to use it because we cannot apply for other grants while we're not purposing this grant. And so we're a little bit hamstrung. So while it's great that we have this money, we have to start to use our money much more efficiently. The Trotter Park grant sat around for too long. This grant sat around for too long. We've got to do more for our community by being able to apply for more grants.
Response?
Thank-
No response? Okay.
Okay, we have another question now from Mr. Chris, or Ms. Kristen Austin of 149 Loring. Yes, thank you. Directed to Deborah Stern. You mentioned transparency in your platform. All meetings, votes, and actions at the Village of Pelham government are done in public, and all meetings are televised. What would you change, Ms. Stern?
8:25, I thought it was like Scott Street, but thank you for that question. I think transparency is not just about that the meetings are televised, that the information is on the website. I think it's also about how you carry yourself as a leader and how I'm transparent as a village trustee to the constituents. And so I think when I talk about transparency, that's what I mean as well. You know, and then one small thing that I've been thinking about a lot is that it's very accessible. Having it on TV, having meetings out and open, it's great. But I think we could also think about how we could move maybe the meetings to a more centrally located place rather than Village Hall, which is a little hard to access, a little dark at night. So that's not a huge transparency issue, but when I say transparency, I mean more how I carry myself as a trustee, working in this community, interacting with people, and being open and honest about the work that we do.
Thank you. Any response?
I guess,
Okay.
you know, transparency, I kind of see as, you know, as your goals are open and the village and the residents have the opportunity to comment and reflect. And I think, you know, if I look back at all the resolutions, I mean, probably 200 resolutions over the last 2 years, they've almost been all, you know, unanimous votes. So we fully vetted these issues to the point where we've gotten to an answer that makes sense to a board. And again, as we've all said, you know, Republican, Democrat doesn't really matter. When you sit around and you've done enough work, you end up coming to the same conclusion that this is the right answer. And I think that's what I see transparency as, is hashing through issues till you get to the point that the resolution makes sense to everyone in the room. And I think we've done that.
Thank you. Mr. John Casson, is that correct? Of 7th Avenue? This is for Mr. Cassidy. Why are you stepping down as mayor and seeking the office of trustee?
John, it's a good question. John Casson, 7th Avenue. You know, John, it was a tough decision for me. I've really enjoyed being mayor. I think 95% of the job is fantastic, 5% not so much. But I do think it's a huge responsibility. And I think that if I wasn't completely confident that Mike Volpe, our deputy mayor, was going to make a fantastic mayor, I would think strongly. I truly believe that, you know, I love this position and trying to help my village, where I grew up and where I raised my kids. I have so much on my plate right now. I think it's time to turn it over to someone who's going to bring new passion to the job. It's time for me to step back. I think Trustee gives me that opportunity to continue the work that we've done over the last 2 years without having the day-to-day pressure that the mayor job brings. So I think it's a great opportunity for me. I want to continue what we've done so far, and that's why I want to stay on as trustee.
Okay,
Last question.
last question.
Can I just add one thing?
What?
Can I add something? It's not a rebuttal. I just wanted to thank him for his 2 years of service.
Thank you.
All right, we'll allow that.
Guess I did it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Last question.
Here's the last question from Mr. Ed Hotchkiss of 78 Chestnut to Paul McGoldrick. How is your knowledge of construction, based on your years of business, help in your work as a trustee? Did I read that properly? You
That's
understand?
close enough.
Okay.
I'm not really sure I know how I want to answer that. Obviously, I worked closely with the building department. I mean, I do work with the trades. I'm out. I see how things are done. I know the process. I know what's involved in getting a project from sort of the concept right through to when the last screw goes in the wall. When things are initiated, it is important for people in this village, when they start projects, to have some definite idea of what they're looking at. It's a large investment that you all are making in your homes, and when you do renovations or when you do work, it is very, very important that you have some reasonable expectation of when you're going to be able to get this ball rolling down the hill and what the project is. I will say that we are blessed with a very, very good building inspector, and I have been pleased working with him. We were able to increase revenues when I worked with Len in a way that I think assisted the village at the time. I think we were able to identify some areas that needed to be streamlined. Apart from everything else, we want to encourage people to do with their homes what they want to do, and more importantly, when it comes to the commercial properties and how they're going to function, it does help when it comes to land use issues, having been around it to see what it really means to do development. And to the extent that I bring that knowledge, it does help when it comes to issues of development as occasionally comes before the board, whether it's somebody wanting to build a new house or whatever. And I find that my experience does add to the conversation.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we now come to the closing statements by the candidates, and they will speak in the reverse order of when they gave their opening statements. So therefore, the first speaker will be Ms. Ferrara. Ms. Moody, I beg your pardon.
Thank you. Over the last 2 years, I have taken the trustee position very seriously, and every 2 weeks at board meetings, I have progress to report. The only path to real accomplishment in this village is the work that gets done outside of the board meetings. In addition to the other projects I mentioned in my opening statement, I have served as the MTA liaison, and while we have had uneven results with snow clearing, we have accomplished the removal of large-scale dead trees, the installation of new bike racks, a solution for the slippery conditions under the Highbrook Bridge, and landscape enhancements. We worked very closely with Amy Pollan's office to facilitate this progress. I also worked with our Shade Tree Committee on the redesign of the Corleys parking lot at the high school to include 10 trees and an evergreen hedge, a significant enhancement to a parking lot that was slated for full paving and virtually no green space, and we picked up additional parking spaces. The Shade Tree Committee donated their expertise by designing the landscape plan, and our committee fundraised. I also created a Pelham governance chart, which serves as a guide to all four of our governing boards in town, and we actually rolled that out at the street fair. We're also in talks with the town hall to possibly use their parking lot behind their building on weekends to facilitate restaurants and shoppers parking. I also brought the crosswalk markers, and so we do to town. They were something that I'd seen in Hastings, and we do take pedestrian safety very seriously. I would love to have the opportunity to serve again with a team that has a demonstrated record of accomplishment in the community. I'm committed to continuing to being part of a team that is dedicated to fiscal responsibility, and I feel our record speaks for itself. Please vote for the team with a significant record of achievement in Pelham, my colleague Tim Cassidy, whose leadership was the catalyst for changing the financial position in our village and championing collaboration in all aspects of government, as well as Zaira Ferrara, who is already working on the Junior League-sponsored Children's Playground and the Committee to Address Downtown Initiatives. Mike Volpe's experience as a former town board member, attorney, and village trustee make him well-suited to lead this village as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Muti. Ms. Ferrera.
Thank you. I want to thank the audience for coming tonight and for all of your thoughtful questions. I also want to take a moment to thank my family and friends who have supported me so much throughout this process. Since joining this ticket, I have learned so much about what is important to our constituents. I want to thank Mike, Tim, and Susan for giving me the opportunity to run with them and taking the time to bring me up to speed on the challenges our community faces and the many opportunities that we have in front of us. I'm very proud to be running with a team that has a track record of accomplishing so much in the past 2 years. They are thorough and committed to making decisions and investments that are right for Pelham on the long term. Together, we're committed to managing our budget responsibly, staying under the state-mandated cap, and continue steering the village in the right direction. My management experience, community work in Pelham, and energy make me an asset to the Board of Trustees, and it would be an honor to serve the community in a new role. So please vote for us on March 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to speak will be Mr. Cassidy, please.
I'm very proud of this board. I think the last 2 years have been spent working furiously on issues that we all care about. But I just want to take you through a few things. We've, as said, developed budgets that were below the state cap of 2.59 and 1.29. We've maintained the fund balance of 1.4 million. We've issued no new debt. We've negotiated contracts with the fire and street department. We changed insurance providers to save the village $30,000 per year. We changed the sanitation provider to save the village $107,000 this year and $60,000 next year. We lowered the parking fees to provide, incredibly needed spots and also to increase the revenue to the village. We've changed the outdoor seating provision to allow more stores to operate outside. We've passed a sign code that allowing sign codes to be permitted legally. We prepared a new business welcome package. We approved a new website design. This is a board that has operated efficiently, and I am really excited about the opportunity to work with the new board going forward. I would love that opportunity, and I think it's exciting the way things happen. I'm going to step away as mayor, and Mike's going to step up, but we're bringing in someone new to run with us in Zaira, who brings new energy, new passion, and new life. So I look forward to this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Stern.
Okay, thank you. So this has been a great discussion, and what was amplified for me was the concerns of the community as shared in the questions. But what kind of amplify for you? Why should you vote for me? I bring years of experience as part of policymaking boards in different capacities. I have extensive experience managing a not-for-profit, which includes negotiating contracts, fundraising, running a small business. I bring a passion to community service, and I would be truly honored to serve this community. Just a little bit about me. I'm a social worker by training, and for 10 years I was a stay-at-home mom and was involved in the community in various boards around Westchester, as I'd mentioned. I've also served in leadership positions for my alma mater, specifically as president of my alumni class and vice president of the Cornell Association of Class Officers. As I mentioned, most recently, my husband and I founded the Imani Public Charter School. And, I've secured grants of over $2 million in grants for the school, and I manage a really large staff. But most importantly, as I've talked about from the beginning, my husband and our 3 children have lived in the village of Pelham since 2010. My children attend Hutchinson, Pelham Middle School, and the high school. My daughter is the founder and manager of the Pelham Babysitting Club. I feel like I always have to put that in there because some of you might know her or see her name around. But that's really a great thing to show how you can take initiative in a town like this and really be welcome as a young entrepreneur. And I think that's a lot of what Pelham's all about. and I value that about our community. We have taken advantage of all the things that Pelham has to offer. The recreation, the art center, the picture house, the great places to eat, the countless hours spent at Julianne's playground. I wanted to mention foot traffic. My friend Leslie used to run Lola's Tea House. I don't know if you know Lola's Tea House, but I remember talking to her a lot about why can't I succeed in Pelham? And a lot of it was about foot traffic. How do you get more people to just walk down the street and into stores? I spent a lot of time. I grew up in New Rochelle. I know Chatsworth Avenue. I shop in Bronxville a lot. I know Palmer and Pondfield. I have a 16-year-old, so I'm familiar with Greenwich Avenue and Greenwich. Those are little villages, and they have streets that are thriving. Tarrytown, Main Street in Tarrytown. I've looked at all those, and I think about what is it that we need to do here. I mean, my through line is Chipotle. I'd like to just have a Chipotle. I'd like to write a letter to them. But,
Thank you, Ms.
but
Stern.
seriously, I just hope that you'll vote for me. I went off tangent. I'm sorry. I told all the jokes. I told my daughter I wouldn't.
Terrible, terrible.
Thank you.
Mr. McGoldrick.
Again, I echo what's been said before. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks for watching at home. I really, really, really like Pelham. Like Tim, I grew up here. I may be a little older than Tim, and I remember some things that he doesn't, but Pelham has been a great place. Patty and I raised 3 kids. Our children did very well in school, and if I don't mind saying it, my daughter is off to medical school next year. Good for me. This has been a really terrific place. We've made wonderful, dear, close friends that I'm sure we'll have for the rest of our lives. It is a marvelous place to live. When I was on the board for the few years that I was on, you get wrapped up so much in the necessities of the moment. What is it going to be the contract negotiation? Is it going to be the insurance guy? Is it going to be the state mandate? Is it going to be the accounts payable? I mean, there's all these things which have to be done because it's part of running this place. When I got away from it, I really had a chance to sort of step back and look at the big picture here. What is the big picture? Where are we as a community? There are a lot of things that I would like to see happen. One of the things is my oldest son has a learning disability. And I feel very passionately that we should be doing something for those among our community that have needs. I mean, is it possible that we could have some sort of a database here that the village could facilitate so when merchants are looking to hire somebody, or when we in the village have a position that might be able to be filled by somebody with a disability, that we can't go to that list and find it? And let's work with our sister community in the matter. Let's work with the town. Let's work with New Rochelle, Melbourne. Let's work with everybody. Let's bring this to bear. I mean, these people are where they are through no fault of their own. It is a compassionate and meaningful thing to do, and we can do this in government. This is partly what can be done.
Thank you, Mr. McGoldrick.
Thank you.
Ms. Sisk.
Thank you. I wanted to thank you all for your time and letting me address some of your concerns. I just have some ideas that I just wanted to get out. I didn't have a chance to get out during the debate itself. If I'm elected, my first order of business would be to address the drop-off and the pickup situation at Colonial and the middle and high schools. Next, I would investigate grants for the paving of roads, work with a committee to develop a capital improvement plan, and create a timeline for those projects. And last, my ideas for the revitalization of the downtown area start with following the recommendations of the Village Comprehensive Plan. We should start by updating current zoning codes, especially now that there's no development project that is contingent on those codes. To update the codes, such as grouping certain types of businesses and limiting other types, would help create the visual continuity found in successful downtown areas. Additionally, no more drive-through businesses should be allowed, such as banks, gas stations, and fast food restaurants. And until the zoning codes are updated, we cannot expect landlords and businesses to anticipate our wants and needs. An updated zoning code will do just that. Parking is another obstacle to fulfilling our dreams of a vital downtown. Although parking has improved with a new lot behind Rockwell's and near the train station, there are still difficulties in finding parking when trying to support local businesses. Removing outdated parking meters and replacing them with Muni meters is not only more efficient, but would also create more parking spaces and therefore more revenue. And the 24-hour lot on 5th Avenue and 3rd Street is not usually full, especially the uncovered area. I propose we provide 2 hours of free parking after 6 p.m. to encourage patrons of local restaurants to park there and safely walk to their destinations. I know that there would be a big learning curve if I was elected, but I am up to the challenge, and I feel that I would be an asset to the Board of Trustees. I ask for your vote on March 18th, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sisk. Couple of announcements. Now, before we go, this meeting was filmed. It will be shown on cable channels of the Village of Pelham and the school district. It will also be shown on the Pelham Weekly website starting tomorrow. The election is Wednesday, March 18th. All voting by Pelham residents will be at the Deronco Townhouse. Polls will be open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. That concludes the festivities, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming out.
I'm only sorry I didn't get to engage with you more because Ms. Klein wouldn't let me, but you're quite humorous.
Well, thank you.
You do this for a living?
Got it. No, I don't. These should be destroyed if I were you. Do you know why?
They're all on tape.
Because sometimes people go to a court with the